Good evening, everyone. My name is Rudy Marconesa. My thesis is entitled Risk Management of Selected Tourist Attractions in Davao City. Risk is inherent in the tourism business, and it will always affect people and their environment, causing damage in some ways. Improperly managed, risk can create tremendous opportunities, but if not, it will lead to loss of lives or properties and irreversible damages of the business and its environment. Risk management is important for the tourism industry since tourist attractions are usually flocked by many people, and as such as they become places of mass injury when a natural disaster occurs. In a tourism destination, the safety of tourists are at risk since they become potential victims of violence and terrorist attack. A tourism or tourist attraction operators must always prepare for the worst scenario because the worst disaster to occur is the lack of preparedness. This study examined the perceived and actual challenges or risks as well as existing practices or controls of selected tourist attractions in Davao City using the APEC International Center for Sustainable Tourism or AICST model in order to propose risk management strategies for each target tourist attraction. Especially the following, or specifically the following objectives had been achieved. Number one, profiles of the selected tourist attractions. Number two, level of perceived risk that will affect the tourist or tourism business. Number three, existing risk management challenges and practices in the selected tourist attractions in Davao City to ensure the safety of the visitors and staff. And number four, risk management strategies that can be proposed for each target tourist attractions based on the selected or the base of the findings. So, okay, so the theoretical framework was based on AI CST model as shown here. The conceptual framework shows that the independent and the dependent variables. The independent variables were number one, perceived and actual risk. Number two, level of perceived risk. Number three, likelihood or impact of actual risk. Four is existing risk management challenges and practices. Okay, so in this work, the selected tourist attractions were divided into two clusters based on the type of attraction. So we have cluster A and cluster B. So cluster A is man-made or natural scenery. Cluster B is island scenery with beach resort. The respondents of the study was a total of 61 selected employees or staff that belong to the top selected management or administrators, starting from the managers down to the supervisors to heads of departments or units. Although 15 questionnaires were given to each of five target tourist attractions, but not all questionnaires were retrieved. Out of 75 distributed questionnaires, only 61 were valid for the study. So the relevant data were gathered through two types of structured questionnaires: survey questionnaire for the perceived risk and interview questionnaire for the actual risk. Both perceived and actual risk were identified, analyzed, and treated based on the rated and computed impacts. So both perceived and actual risk were identified and analyzed and treated based on the rated and computed impacts. The ratings of risk were then arranged from highest to lowest to determine which risks were of high impact and which were of low impact. For the actual risk, each identified risk was scored based on the likelihood of the occurrence and the corresponding impact using the risk matrix. A risk management framework was then used to have a comprehensive view of the risk analysis wherein risk scores, risk response, strategy, and actions to be taken to treat risk were outlined. The risk scores indicate which risks were to be avoided or high impact, mitigate, medium impact, and accepted low impact. So analysis of the risk revealed that the selected tourist attractions differed in the challenges and practices. what was perceived as high risk in one business may be low in another business. So it depends on the type of business and location. So, in the perceived risk, natural disaster, example earthquake, and business risk were among the high rated risk. In actual risk, natural disaster and health, example COVID-19 pandemic, were among the highly scored risks. Okay, so this is example of risk register. Here, there were five risks and five existing practices and five strategies. So this is the risk matrix used in the analysis of the actual risk. The scores given to actual risks were based on the likelihood and impact. This is a sample of risk analysis. Here, the score, response, strategy, and suggested actions are also shown. The analysis indicate that the responses to all the risk statements were spread across the scale of intensity rating, which indicated that not all respondents consider the risk of equal importance to their business. A risk may be important to one operator but not to the other, depending on the type of business and location. As indicated by the ranking of risk categories for each tourist attraction, risks vary from business to business. What are perceived is a high risk in one business may be low risk in another and depends on the type of business and location. Analysis of risk also revealed that selected tourist attractions differ in the challenges and practices. The four highest sorry rated risks were then associated to the challenges since high impact risks were challenging and difficult to handle. Okay, so the categories on nature and business risk were rated as high impact and perceived risk. For actual risk, the impact of earthquake and COVID-19 pandemic were common challenges across all target tourist attractions as shown in risk register. The risk register also shows that the actual challenges and practices vary from one business to another, and hence different risk management strategies are needed. The risk management framework gave a comprehensive view of risk analysis, score, response, strategy, and suggested actions for each target tourist attraction. As outlined in the risk analysis table, earthquake and coronavirus got high scores among the actual risk. This score of category 1, the nature, is consistent with obtained from perceived high impact. So based on the findings, what were perceived as high impact risk also scored high in the actual risk, indicating that the result in perceived risk was consistent with the of the actual risk. Risk management is helpful in identifying and analyzing and treating risk, thus preventing and reducing of the impacts of risk. The study highlighted the importance of risk awareness and risk management as preventive measures for the negative impact of risk. As indicated by these crisis and catastrophic events caused by natural disasters and the COVID-19 pandemic affecting tourism, it is therefore concluded that there is a need to make a risk management as necessary component for resilience and sustainability of the tourism business. So the descriptive analysis is insufficient as it only provides information with respect to the selected tourist statements and not in terms of the risk categories, which may risk not contained in the structured questionnaire. The ranking of the risk categories only suggests which risks were important of the respondents. It cannot indicate that risks were considered more important than others. Thus, it is highly recommended that the further studies be made to include other potential risks and not mentioned in the study and be included in the strategy for tourism risk. So, the research highlighted the importance of the risk management in the tourism business and made operators aware of the existence of perceived and actual risk. The research outlined 8 main categories of risk and showed the risks differ from business to business and depends on the type of business, location, and management. The study was highlighted the complexity of managing risks from a tourist attractions point of view and will serve as a guide in managing tourism risk to help tourism industry become resilient. This research has resulted to the development of strategies for managing tourism risk. That's all. Thank you.